Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The government says it has no plans to send independent commissioners to Kensington and Chelsea Council following criticism of its handling of the Grenfell Tower fire disaster. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, had urged ministers to appoint commissioners following the resignation yesterday of the leader of the council. Instead, the government says it will keep a close eye on the situation. Frankie McCamley has more.
As the tributes continue to arrive and the missing posters line many of the streets, the anger towards the council here is clear. It was the breakdown of this, the first cabinet meeting at the council since the fire at Grenfell Tower, that led to the resignation of its leader, Nicholas Paget-Brown.
As council leader, I have to accept my share of responsibility.
Pressure had been mounting on the council following intense criticism of the way the disaster had been handled from day one. The resignation has been welcomed by many, including the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, who's urged the Prime Minister to appoint commissioners to run the borough. He wrote, "Commissioners who are untainted should take over the running of the council to act in the best interests of the residents." But the government says it's keeping its options open.
Nothing is off the table in making sure that the local residents, that especially the victims, their families and the friends, they get all the support that they need. And clearly there's a role for local council, there's a role for government and many others, but where anyone is not stepping up and doing what is expected of them, then nothing should be off the table.
The council now needs a new leader, and that person will have to be elected by the council itself, not by the people. And some residents here say they're not happy with that. They want a bigger say on who is going to be making those key decisions. And some are sceptical of whoever is put in charge.
They cannot just impose their old boy network and their friends and family scheme that they seem to operate elsewhere. There needs to be a proper process for the selection of those commissioners, and that has to be community-led. They cannot do that on their own. We're not going to be imposed on at state level again.
It's understood a new council leader will be elected next week in the hope of rebuilding trust with those whose lives have been torn apart. Frankie McCamley, BBC News.
The haunting image of the blackened remains of Grenfell Tower formed the backdrop to today's anti-austerity march in Westminster. The Labour leader vowed to force another election and reiterated calls for the government to use special powers to take control of the council tarnished by the tragedy. The Community Secretary Sajid Javid said ministers were keeping that option on the table, promising to keep a close eye on the situation and to take further action if needed. Grenfell survivors insist the time for action is now. The government has put Kensington and Chelsea Council on notice after its leaders resigned over the handling of the Grenfell Tower disaster. Senior Labour figures say the breakdown in trust is now so severe that urgent action is needed to restore the faith of the local community, while Community Secretary Sajid Javid said no options were off the table when it came to the council. Kamian Zaram reports.
The grotesque shell that is Grenfell Tower, high up in what was once someone's home. A brief glimpse of a police investigator, disturbing ash and debris which scatters to the winds. Grief and anger at the officials residents say are to blame. With video emerging from a meeting in Parliament on Thursday night of an impassioned speech from a volunteer. Politicians, she said, have failed.
I had a 4-year-old girl come in and say she wanted to give her toys to those children because she didn't want them to be sad. Now, if that's a 4-year-old child, why can't our ministers in Parliament that we pay blasted taxes to day in and day out? Why don't they ever sad? Why? They had so many houses in South Kensington. If they really wanted to help, this woman would get a house, that woman would get a house.
Most survivors and evacuees have been put up in hotels, with some of them, it's claimed, still paying Kensington and Chelsea rent for the homes they no longer have, which was played down this morning by a Kensington councillor.
Oh, come on. I mean, I'm not saying it's a tiny thing. For them, it's a huge thing and it's very upsetting. But the council have had to house, well, they are in the process of trying to house 400 people.
She's outed herself to show the contempt that the local authority leadership has treated us for so long. Her response should have been, I'm going to go and check that out now. So it's interesting to see what they see as tiny matters. Are our lives tiny? Do our tiny lives not matter?
The Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea responded to the claims with a statement. It reads, "We're very sorry if this has happened and we're working to find out who's been affected so we can offer reassurance and an immediate refund. To the best of our knowledge, the rent charges for Grenfell Tower and Grenfell Walk were stopped. But if anyone's had money inadvertently taken, we'll make arrangements to have it immediately refunded." But this street art tells you everything about public confidence in government. The Mayor of London has said commissioners should be drafted in to run Kensington Council following the resignation of the leader and deputy leader, with the community secretary on a visit to the area promising to monitor the process to replace them.
Nothing is off the table in making sure that the local residents, that especially the victims, their families and the friends, they get all the support that they need. And clearly there's a role for local council, there's a role for government and many others, but where anyone is not stepping up and doing what is expected of them, then nothing should be off the table.
At the local market, a community fundraiser, but justice for Grenfell is still a very, very long way off.